Why did the Utah Jazz draft Walter Clayton Jr.?
Solid night for Chinyelu, 6 points, 6 boards.
There's Martin again, disrupted defensively.
Clayton, climbs the line.
Jazz Smack, your source for information and analysis about the Utah Jazz and NBA basketball. Jazz Smack is a community for passionate Utah Jazz NBA fans.
So why did the Jazz draft Walter Clayton Jr.? We're going to look at some more clips and some data from his college days and can kind of compare it to some of the really prominent Jazz point guards of the past years, and also several other point guards that really played a huge impact in the NBA and how their numbers in college compared to Walter Clayton Jr.'s. And we'll look at all that, some clips, and I'll give you my thoughts on exactly why I think the Jazz and why it was important for the Jazz to draft Walter Clayton Jr. Now, Walter likes to be referred to as Walt, so from here forward, we're going to try to do that as much as possible. But anyway, my feeling was the Jazz absolutely the franchise needs a leader on the court. I think Walt Clayton Jr.'s previous stop at Iona prior to getting to Florida, he played for Rick Pitino at Iona his freshman and sophomore years, and then he transferred to Florida and played his junior and senior years. And obviously, he was the main cog in that Florida team, making it to the national championship game in the NCAA tournament and ultimately winning the NCAA tournament. Now, Florida had some really good players on that team, not in addition to Walt Clayton. So I'm not trying to disparage the other players on that team at all. I mean, that team had some really good defensive players, and there are other players on that team that are certainly obviously getting a shot in the NBA. But Walt was he was the lead horse there. I mean, it was obviously he put the team on his back at times and propelled them to win even when they were down at times. And I think that the Jazz desperately need that on the court. They need one of those guys, somebody who can lead the team. So let's first look at some of these clips from his college days, both at Iona and at Florida, and then we'll look at some numbers that how he compares to previous point guards, and we'll go from there because there is a summer league game coming up today shortly, and I definitely want to be done with this and want to watch that game. So let's watch this. Let's go ahead and watch some of these clips from his college days at University of Florida. So this first one is it doesn't have any audio, but his up fake, his ability to up fake and still get off is exactly the same shot at his own pace is high level. I mean, it's really good, and he does this often. He uses a simple up fake, he sidesteps, he gets the defender off his feet, and he gets into the same shot that he would normally shoot without the up fake. I mean, he's always at his own pace. He's playing at his own speed, and he has a really compact shooting motion. It's really quick, it's compact, and he shoots it with low effort. So it's always on pace. That's the most important thing. And we're going to look at another one. Here's another one.
Back up to the top, Shema to Clayton. Nice
he up fakes, goes left, steps left, and it's a smooth stroke where he's putting minimal effort into it, and it's exactly the same stroke as he would use if there were no defender around. And he does this over and over and over again. Let's take a look at another clip. So here he is.
A little bit of a separation.
Again,
nice ball fake on Quaintance, and boy, that was
a ball fake. Defender flies by, he steps to the right, effortless shot, nothing but the bottom of the net. And again, I mean, he's playing at his own pace, and this is an important point. it's really difficult for young guys to play at their own pace at the point guard position, especially. And Walt Clayton Jr. is a little bit older, 22 years old. He played 4 years in college, which is rare for, players heading into the NBA draft these days. But he has developed his game to where, he's dictating pace of play and he's dictating things rather than being dictated by the defense all the time. So let's take a look at another one.
Where a tie game or a 2-point game suddenly becomes a 6 or
He's up top with the ball, taking his time, dribbling around. He's got a switch on the pick.
Clayton Jr. double clutching and then streaking.
So he went to his right from the 3-point line, got into the defender's body, a bigger guy, but got his body into the defender and was able to finish with his right hand off the glass in a fairly easy play for him. Because the thing about Walt Clayton Jr. is he has a big body. I mean, at the pre-draft combine, when they took his weight and his height and they did all the testing with the jumping and the quickness and all that, he measured out in terms of weight at 199 pounds. He measured 6'2" at 199. Darren Williams coming in, I think he was 6.2.75, and he weighed in at 202 or 203 in the pre-draft camp. So Walt Clayton's size, his numbers are almost exactly identical to Darren's. I mean, they're almost the same height, they're almost the same weight, and obviously Darren had shed some weight going into that draft because, he was really heavy at the University of Illinois, but he'd shed some weight, but he still went in as strong. And one of the reasons why Jerry Sloan wanted the Jazz to draft Darren Williams is because he was a strong kid and he thought his body could withstand the wear and tear of the NBA a lot better than a smaller player. The other alternative at that time was Chris Paul. So that's why one of the reasons why the Jazz drafted Darren over Chris Paul is because of his bigger body. And yet here Walter Clayton is. Walter Clayton's known as a combo guard, but his numbers are all his measurements are almost exactly the same as Darren. He's a big kid, he's a strong kid, and when he's going to the basket, like we just saw in this clip, he can get his body into the defender and still finish easily. And he can finish easily with either hand. He's very good around the basket with both hands, finishing the ball. And that is a tremendous skill. Obviously, the NBA is much bigger and much more athletic than college basketball. But, Walt Clayton is built for that physicality. His body is NBA ready right now. He doesn't need to add weight like Cody Williams. He doesn't need to get stronger like Cody Williams. He's built for it. He's built for it immediately. And obviously Walt is older than Cody Williams. So Cody Williams is going through the process right now of adding weight and strength. Walt already has that. He had that actually at Iona, and it's just improved over the 4 years of his playing college. Well, so let's look at another clip.
Clayton Jr. Oh, what a move! An old hokey dokey to the rack.
Again, he's playing at his own pace. He's up top. He goes left a little bit. He shifts back right. He kind of, he's changing speeds and he throws the guys off and he just blows by him on the right side. There's a big guy, he blew by him, an easy layup into the lane where it was just completely open at that point. So again, he's very shifty. He has these slight movements that make him, not easy to read what he's going to do, where he's going to go with the ball. And it's impressive. For a guy coming out of college, this is impressive stuff. So again, let's go on to another clip.
Who has not scored in the second half through 6.5 minutes. Clayton weaving through traffic, and what a move! Counted and a foul. That was Gordon.
So here, Walter Clayton, he's coming off, there's a pick up top, and he's coming off that, going to his right above the 3-point line. And he kind of snakes his way through the lane, all the way from the right side of the lane, all the way over to the left side. And then he picks up the dribble, and he waits, and then he pivots back, and he puts the ball in the basket with his right hand on kind of a little half hook shot. And that, again, it's patience. He's weaving his way through the lane. It's patience all the way from when he had the defender trailing him at the top of the key at the pick, and then he makes his way at his own pace through the lane. He takes his time. He uses great footwork once he does stop, and pivots back and puts in the little half hook shot in the paint. I mean, that is just terrific patience, a terrific understanding of space. I mean, it's just really high level stuff. So let's look at another couple.
As a really good Florida team. They got up to a great start this season, and Walter Clayton Jr.
Okay, here he has a guy coming out up top. He's at a little bit right of the top of the key above the 3-point line, and he blows by his guy. He gets the guy kind of on his back, and then he's in front of him, and then he stops in the air, and the guy's behind him, and he bumps into him as he's going up for the layup, and it's an and one. Again, this has a lot to do with his pace of play, the size of his body, how strong he is, that he's easily able to finish this with the bump, and he's easily able to blow by because of his shiftiness and his athleticism, and it just becomes a really easy play for him when it certainly should not have been this simple. But for him, with all of his physical attributes, with his pace of play, this becomes a really easy play again. Again, this is a really nice play, nice understanding. One more.
You watch him, the confidence he's playing with is different.
Here's Clayton. Gets it to you watch him.
Now here, Walter Clayton, he dribbles by his guy. He beats him with like a little in-out dribble on the right-hand side above the 3-point line, a little bit right of center of top of the key, and the little in-and-out dribble going to his left, and then he gets into the lane, and he gets all the way to the basket and finishes with his left hand. Again, like I said, he's really good with either hand around the basket. I've seen him finish with his left hand on the right side of the basket. I've seen him finish with his left hand on the left side of the basket. I've seen him finish with his right hand on the right side of the basket, on his right hand on the left side of the basket. I mean, whatever is needed, he's willing to do, and he's capable of doing with either hand. And he has many of the little shifty dribble moves. You know, he doesn't have, Kyrie Irving type of dribble manipulation, but he's shifty with it, and he's slight with it. He's slight with it where he can get guys off balance with just a little bit of nuance, and he can get guys off balance, and then he'll take advantage of that. And this is just great stuff, and this is the stuff I like to see. Everybody knows about his deep range. Now, Walt Clayton Jr. has insane range with his shot. He shoots it so effortlessly. I mean, it's really great. And those are some of the things that the fans really remember. But some of this other stuff is actually equally as important, and it's not so obvious. But when you look at a compilation of clips, you can see what he does and how he manipulates his pace and how he manipulates his speeds and how he uses picks and defenders, and he uses all these things in combination, and he has great understanding from a collegiate standpoint. His understanding is really good. And I think that he has the ability to improve on his assist numbers, obviously, in the NBA and become more of a combo guard with some weight towards the point guard aspect than just becoming, like an off the bench combo guard. I think he has more capability than that. And I hope the Jazz, with that move up in the draft feel that way as well, because I want to see Walter Clayton succeed. I want him to succeed with the Jazz, and I want him to be able to play a major role in propelling the Jazz franchise forward from their current state. Now, obviously, this is going to take a little time. The Jazz have so many young pieces. The Jazz still need to lose this year in all reality in order to obtain and keep that draft pick of Oklahoma City. So they need to be in the lottery in the top 8 in order to do that. But the Jazz finally have the pieces where you start to see something shaping, where they're shaping something for the future, where you can see, okay, we have some key guys now with the other young guys we've drafted over the past few years, and there's some hope that things will improve, a year, 2 years from now, where we can try and win some decent number of games compared to the past 3 years, and also obviously this year with the franchise needing to continue to build the roster and keep that Oklahoma City pick rather than conveying that pick to Oklahoma City, keep that pick. There's going to be some growing pains this year, but the good thing is the Jazz have made some moves where we are in a situation where we can actually try and win those games. Now, I think there's still 1 or 2 more moves left to come, at least prior to the trade deadline. Who knows if it will happen before the season starts. There's a good chance it won't, but prior to the trade deadline, I at least expect 1 more move to take place. We'll see what happens. But those are my thoughts for Walter Clayton Jr. Let's look at the numbers really quick and these comparables. So we're looking right now at the draft, like the college numbers of Walter Clayton Jr. compared to John Stockton. So let me go through briefly for those listening on audio only. So Walter Clayton Jr., he played 2 years at Iona, 2 years at Florida, so he had 4 years in college. So his 2-point percentage his senior year was 53%. He shot 53% on 2-pointers his senior year, and 3-point percentage his senior year, he shot 39%. And those are obviously really good numbers. And the even more impressive number, this is wild. His free throw percentage, like at Iona, his first year, it was 79%. But his second year, his sophomore year at Iona, he shot 95% from a free throw line. 95%. That's Mark Price territory. That is Mark Price. It is best year in the NBA, 95%. That is an unbelievable number. So it's crazy. But also Walt, as a senior, he averaged 4.2 assists, and he also scored 18.3 points per game. So all of those are terrific numbers, obviously. Fabulous. As good as you can really hope to have. Now let's compare that to Stockton. Stockton, his senior year, and you got to remember, Stockton played in the WCAC, which is now called the WCC, but they didn't have a 3-point line back then. There was no college 3-point line when Stockton was playing for Gonzaga. So all of his field goal attempts were as close to the basket as he could get. But his senior year, his field goal percentage was 58%. 58%. He also scored 21 points a game. I think he was West Coast Conference Player of the Year that senior season, and I think he led the conference in scoring as well at 21 points a game. But he also averaged 7.2 assists per game. And obviously that 7.2 assists, that's a really nice number for college basketball. So that's a little bit of Stockton compared to Walter Clayton Jr. So now let's look at Walt compared to Darren and see how that stands out. Now we already went through the Walt numbers, so let's look at Darren. Darren left after his junior year at Illinois. And obviously that Illinois team, Darren was the leader of that team, and he propelled that team to the title game. I believe they lost in the title game. but they didn't win it. They were in the Final Four. They didn't win it. I think they lost in the title game. But anyway, Darren, as a junior, he shot 43.3% from the field, and his three-point percentage was 36.4. His two-point percentage, 49.1. His free throw percentage, 68% as a senior, even though he shot 69%. 68% as a junior, even though he shot 79% free throw line as a sophomore. But his assists, 6.8 as a junior, which is obviously very good. And his points, the number of points he scored was as a junior was 12.5 points per game. So obviously Darren's scoring numbers were a bit less than Walter Clayton Jr. But his assist numbers were a bit better. His field goal percentage numbers is obviously 3-point shooting and free throw shooting and whatnot were not as good as Walt's were. But his 2-point percentage numbers were actually pretty good. Not as good as Walt's, because Walt's was heavily weighted towards the three. That's why his overall field goal percentage was so low. But Darren's numbers are, and he certainly improved as a shooter with the Jazz, and he proved as a passer with the Jazz, and he proved as a leader with the Jazz until the blow up with Sloan, and obviously he was shipped out and Sloan retired. So let's look at Walt versus Chris Paul and see where their numbers go. Now, Chris Paul played 2 years at Wake Forest prior to leaving for the draft. And as you recall, that draft is where the Jazz had the choice. You know, they were selecting between Deron Williams and Chris Paul, and they chose Deron Williams because of his size numbers. I mean, Sloan felt that Darren had a body to better withstand the rigors of an NBA season. So Chris Paul's numbers, let's look at those. His shooting percentages are really good. So his overall field goal percentage as a senior, 45.1, 3-point percentage, 47.4, 2-point percentage, 44.1, free throw percentage, 83.4, assists, 6.6, and points scored. Chris, as a sophomore, he scored 15.3 points per game. All right, let's look at Walt versus Nash. So, Nash played, as you can see here, I'm cutting out a little bit, but Nash played, he played 4 years at Santa Clara, and as a senior, he averaged 17 points a game, and assists. He had 6 assists per game right here, and his 2-point field goal percentage was 51% as a senior. 3-point percentage was 34. His overall field goal percentage was 43. So those are some good numbers as well. And as you can recall, Steve Nash was he elevated the play of his teammates on that Santa Clara team to where they were making the NCAA tournament while he was there. They won games in the NCAA tournament. They upset teams in the NCAA tournament. So, I mean, Steve played a high level. Not only were his numbers terrific, but his ability to elevate the play of his teammates was some of the best I've ever seen in college basketball. I mean, he did that much for that team. And I was there in his senior year. I went down to Tempe, Arizona, to the ASU stadium and watched him play in the first and second rounds. And in the first round, they upset Maryland with X-Ray Hip on that team. That was the year after Joe Smith exited for the NBA draft, but X-Ray Hip was still there. That team was still thought of as a good team. Santa Clara went in there behind Steve Nash, leading the way, and they beat that Maryland team. Unfortunately for Steve, their second round matchup was against Kansas with Rafe LaFrance and Jacques Bon, and Kansas absolutely annihilated Santa Clara. That game was a blowout. But still, the leadership qualities of Nash, I think this is where I want Walt Clayton to go. The leadership aspect, putting the team on your back at times, getting guys in the right spots, those type of things. That's the hope. Let's look at one more. We have here with Walt and Jason Kidd. Now, Jason Kidd played at Cal for 2 years. He left after his sophomore season to the NBA draft, where he was drafted by the Dallas Mavericks. In his 2 seasons at Cal, his sophomore season, he shot 47% from the field, 36% from three. On 2-pointers, he shot 55%. And his assist numbers, this is where Kidd just excelled with pushing the ball. 9.1 assists per game as a sophomore. I mean, wow. That is a massive number for a college player. 9.1 assists per game. It's incredible, to be honest. And 16.7 points per game. So Kidd was really good. And that's why he was given the ball by Dick Motta. Dick Motta was his rookie coach in Dallas, and Dick Motta said before they drafted, we're going to give him the ball, and they did. And Kidd figured it out, and he obviously had an amazing NBA career. So those are just some comparables. Now, is Walt Clayton Jr. going to ever beat any of those guys? I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. But I think from the Jazz standpoint, looking back at the 2 best point guards they've had of the past, you can argue that Mike Conley should be included in that as well, as like that third guy who was a really good point guard. But obviously Stockton and Darren were players that the Jazz drafted rather than traded for. So if you look back at some of the things that those players did and some of those things that those players did for the Jazz, I mean, I think those, obviously the Stockton years, the Jazz made the finals twice. That was the heyday of Utah Jazz NBA basketball to this point. Darren obviously led the team to some really high level play as well. Darren and Boozer, Memo, Karolinko, those guys, to a Western Conference Finals, I believe, if I recall correctly. So the Jazz were really good in those Darren years. It's too bad that things blew up and everybody parted ways, but the Jazz were good. And from a leadership standpoint, we hope that Walter Clayton can get there. That's my hope. That's why I wanted the Jazz to draft Walter Clayton in this draft. I mean, he has some incredible shooting skills, just absolutely amazing. He plays at his own pace. He's very shifty. He has good athleticism, because you see with that opening dunk and his measurables at the pre-draft combine with 37-inch max vertical, 30-inch no standing vertical. I mean, those are good numbers. That 37 inches, I mean, you look at like VJ Edgecombe, he was, by many consider him the best athlete in this draft. And I know there's more to athleticism than just vertical leap, but VJ Edgecombe's match vertical is 48.5 compared to Walt Clayton's 37. So an 1.5 inch difference. So if you look at all the numbers, what he did at Florida, what he did at Iona, I think there are some real positives and some real positive hopes that can be placed on the shoulders of Walter Clayton Jr., that he becomes the guy that I think could help the Jazz move forward in a positive direction and hopefully become one of the main guys that really propels the Jazz into a competitive state rather than what we've watched the past 3 years and what we will watch again this year, obviously, with trying to retain that OKC pick and trading away all the veteran guys. But anyway, let's see what happens later this evening with the Jazz Summer League up at the Huntsman Center in Salt Lake City, and we will see how Walt plays. I mean, obviously the Jazz have some more senior guards on their team in terms of seniority with the team, and I don't know where Walt's going to place into that. He's probably not going to start. I mean, I assume that Collier and Bryce and Cody and those guys have dibs over starting at this point over Walt. But I don't think Bryce is going to play in Vegas, so I would assume that Bryce actually ends up playing a starting role once the Jazz shift away from Salt Lake and end up in Las Vegas. I think that he probably will have a starting role there and play bigger minutes, because Bryce, I doubt that he goes on to Salt Lake. I mean, to Vegas to play. But we'll see what happens. I mean, it's exciting time, really exciting night. Anyway, let's go ahead and watch the Summer League in a little while, tip-offs in a little while, but I hope that everybody found the clips and the data of from the college days of all these guys compared to Walt's interesting, and we can hope for the best, but I appreciate everybody following along. If you want to, we urge you to subscribe to us on YouTube, and please like, share, and subscribe on YouTube. Please follow us on X at Jazz Smack, and we will talk to everybody later. Good night, everybody.